Hello there. Excuse me, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy channel. My name is Jed, and we are reading the Philosophical Midwifery book. Last time we finished with a question. What we need is a method to put that part of ourselves, the part of ourselves that is aware of all that we're going through, has a voice, has a depth of understanding. How do we put that part of ourselves to work on this noble task? So will we find an answer in the next section of this chapter, chapter 9, meaning and pathologos? Let's see. Part 9, chapter 2. The chapter is called The Pathologos. Meaning and the pathologos. 9th, I have participated in thousands of talks and reviewed many more, and I always pay careful attention to the origin of each pathologos. Subjects I have worked with have included many people of many races and backgrounds, and the summary of my findings is simple to state. We come into this world with a deep respect and profound attraction to the presence of virtues. No one introduced us to these ideas of truth, fairness, sincerity, and beauty, which must be the virtues, nor taught us about them, nor can we recall gathering them up from experience. It is this very respect for those virtues that is the primary condition for the imposition of the pathologos. While we may all share in these noble ideas, there is no such sharing that produces the particular judgment that formulates the pathologos. It is unique to each of us. Indeed, I have never found two identical pathologi. Each of us comes up with our own unique interpretation, and clearly, it is not something we are taught. We were taught. Again, the uniqueness is not a mark of each person's particular cherished viewpoint, nor is it a function of the relativity of each person's perceptions, unless we acknowledge that those unique interpretations are always wrong, since they are based upon the pathologos, which is a false belief. Whatever similarity can be found among the pathologos, there is always that unique difference that makes an individual pathologos unique. In comparing the content of each pathologos, it is possible to discover some similarity that might be attributed to this or that case. But to what can we attribute this individuality of the pathologos? It is this uniqueness, this particularity, that holds us captive. How do we account for this individuality that is the distinctive mark of each pathologos? Well, we either gained it from our experience or it came with us. If we say it is innate, then we could expect that feature to be something common to us all, and not something unique to each of us. Clearly, two conditions are required for the pathologos. General factors common to all mankind, which are the presence and perception of the signs of those virtues, and individual factors or differences, which are necessary for the particular and unique expression of the pathologos. Together, these two craft the uniqueness of each pathologos, making each different from all others. Indeed, different family members of the same family have unique ways of integrating the same family pathologos, and they gain different roles which are compatible within the family pathologos. Now, taking the common features first, we can say that we either learned all about these virtues at birth or soon after birth, or they are innate. Surely the transmission of the pathologos is not possible without the display of what is taken to be knowledge, greatness, beauty, and justice, since it is upon appearances of these virtues that authority and imitation are based. But the display is only of an image of these virtues, an appearance of the real. Which, even though it is a distorted image, nonetheless is impressive. The display by authorities in these dramas of what is perceived as virtue is recalled by subjects as young as 2 years of age. Thus there is evidence from the earliest years of childhood of the presence and perception of the signs of these virtues. But there is no evidence we learnt them through any experience. Yet if we entered this existence of ours with a mind like a clean slate, to which experience adds all we have come to know, then those early years should provide evidence of having learned these virtues. There should be some recollection of having experienced these virtues and ideas, and some recollection of how we came to identify them. For how do we learn these noble ideas and discover how they interrelate? They are already in place in the early years of childhood. There is no evidence of children having previously learned these noble ideas or of having experienced them. Perhaps, as some might argue, we have learnt them from experiences. It is just that we are unable to recall those experiences. It is just, yes, but if this is so, then there is no evidence from experience to make this claim. In the formulation of the content of the pathologos, we can argue in a similar way and say that since the particular uniqueness of interpretation of the pathologos is in evidence from early childhood, there should be evidence or experiences that can be cited to explain how we learned to interpret, how we came to the particular way we have of interpreting, and how we learned to keep from ourselves such interpretations. But again, there is no evidence. Thus, there is no evidence from philosophical midwifery to support the blank slate theory. So we have a reaction to the perception of these virtues and the particular uniqueness of the pathologos are brought into existence with the individual. The two qualities, the universal reaction to the perception of virtues, even its distorted image, which is still impressive, and the particular uniqueness of how we make sense of it, how we interpret it. Now, make sense is the wrong word because it's interpretation, and we just read the interpretations are all false. But unique. We can say we brought this mode of interpretation with us into this life, and it gives the specific form to our pathologos. All the succeeding variations and adjustments of the pathologos merely shape and craft its features. If this is what we brought with us, then this is our personal heritage. Since this is our personal interpretation, then our life's work is to resolve our pathologos. Further, since the pathologos can be resolved, it is not innate, but came into existence with us. In other words, with what we brought in with us that allows us to interpret in the unique way, bringing that into a human form adds that particularity to the general or the universal. The fact that we are souls seeking those things we are calling virtues. And we recognize them. Therefore, putting those two things together is bringing into existence with us. We are providing the unique part. We're also providing the seeking of virtues, but we bring into existence the particular pathologos that is unique to us. Since the pathologos can be resolved, it is not innate, but came into existence with us in that way. For rather than being an inherent feature of man's development, it is a transient feature since it can be resolved. In resolving the pathologos, we gain a more profound understanding of these virtues and enter into relationships where their presence lay the foundation for a meaningful existence. Curiously, our reasoning leads us to a strange conclusion. We won't get out of our problems until we discover what we took to be real was merely an appearance. We won't get out of our problems until we discover what we took to be real was merely an appearance, and that the appearances of virtue that we have imitated are, in every way, unworthy of us. We are better than that. As philosophical midwives come to recognize and understand this level of existence, they themselves participate in philosophical midwifery more directly and sincerely. Our existence here, so the greater we improve as a philosophical midwife and we recognize this level of existence, the level of existence of imitation of that which our soul truly seeks, then the more directly and sincerely we will participate in midwifery as the pregnant party, as the party with the problem. So our growth as a facilitator, a dialectician, midwifing someone, as we see these sorts of things as a midwife, as we grow in that art, we also benefit by becoming more direct and sincere in our own functioning, as when we are the ones being midwife. In other words,
it's a win-win.
It's a win-win. Our existence here has given us our task, which is to overcome the effects of those communications that have turned us away from pursuing what is right. In the return, we recover what collection of what we have forgotten about justice, knowledge, and sound-mindedness. We're recovering what we lost, which is also a recollection of what we have forgotten. Notice, it's the mind. We're not losing our keys. It's a matter of forgetting what we know and recovering or recollecting it. What do we know about? Justice. We knew about justice? We knew about knowledge? We knew about how to be temperate or sound-mindedness, even-tempered. Be a well-ordered soul. The effect of resolving these distorted communications is at the same time a truer recollection of those virtues. The effect of resolving the distorted communications is at the same time a truer recollection of the virtues. So in resolving what's false, that is a kind of functioning of the virtues. Interesting. Interestingly, there is these two things that Plato cites as the value of gaining an earthly existence, since it is only here that the soul can gain a training in these very things. Prior to this existence, it is said, the soul missed an opportunity to see the most splendid and blessed of mysteries. And if it is to complete its spiritual evolution, it needs to return to where it can gain the necessary training. Okay, so we have some knowledge bombs dropped on our asses.
But hey, that's
And I've lost my
just
sound
a
effects.
theory.
God damn it.
But hey, that's just a theory.
They're back. So, we've been dropped a knowledge bomb theory on our asses from Plato. What did Plato say? Prior to our incarnation into this particular human existence, our soul missed the opportunity to see the most splendid and blessed of mysteries. Oh, we're correcting ourselves here. Why do we miss out? If it is to complete its spiritual evolution, so we can complete us. That's interesting. There's an end, there's a completion, and we can do it. We don't just cross our fingers and hold our nose and hope for the best. Or listen to the people and say, nothing, there is no end. We're like Sisyphus, pushing a rock up a mountain. Nope. There is a training, there is a meaning, there is an evolution, and it can be completed, and we can do it. So, interesting. That if we want to complete our spiritual evolution, we need to return to where it can gain the necessary training so that we don't miss out on this most blessed and splendid of mysteries as a pure soul. Thus, for the Platonist, the problems we face today are our lessons for tomorrow. Isn't that lovely? That's a bumper sticker or a meme. Anyone watching who's computer savvy or Photoshop savvy, can you make it a meme? The problems we face today are our lessons for tomorrow. What does that mean? Well, I guess he's saying either one of two things. The tomorrow is either when we reflect on our problems and solve them in this way, by resolving the distorted communications, recollecting the true virtues that we are seeking, and train our soul in a way so that we don't miss the mark and we don't miss out on the blessed and splendid of mysteries, most blessed and splendid of mysteries. Right, so the tomorrow could be the next day after our problems where we reflect on them and solve them, or the tomorrow could be tomorrow as in after you die. When you return back to where your soul was, that's when our lessons come into effect. We either participate or share in more fully whatever our soul was missing. That could be the tomorrow. Could be either of those. Both right, seems. The art of philosophical midwifery turns us around to focus on our existence. For to understand the forces and ideas that operate in our problems, we must turn our attention around and reflect on those things that escaped our notice. This turning about of our very being is what is called in Greek ousia. It's a keyword that a lot of us recognize if you're following along with the Platonic readings. Ousia, there isn't an English word, so we have to add this one from Greek. And in that motion, Usia, there is a turning about of the mind towards a reality beyond mere existence. Another way of expressing this is to say that in our present existence, we can reach out and touch Usia through the art of philosophical midwifery.
Have you read Brand at all? Have you read Nagel?
Wow. 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 Wow.
Wow. We can reach out and touch Usia. And if you're familiar with philosophy, with our reading of philosophy, Usia is the nature of mind, because this ability to turn around and reflect on itself and know itself is the defining characteristic of mind. And it's the definition of the essence of the experience of being, where we recall those things we mentioned, like justice, beauty, the virtues. So what? So as this is where the party is, and this is true being. This is where our soul can be in itself and not in a body. Then we want to get to the party. We want to experience truth. We want to know the truth. We want to use it as a model for true justice and beauty, especially in answering our pathologos teachers. Hey, you think you were beautiful and just? Well, I just checked it out myself. Here's how you fall short. This is why you weren't just, why you weren't beautiful, and why the things that you were telling me are not believable, and it's not worth me carrying the conclusion that I'm carrying about myself to save you pretending to be just when you weren't. So it can help us in that way, as well as being fun, illuminating, inspiring, blissful. So that's Usia, being. And what we just got here is, in our present existence, we can reach out and touch Usia through the art of philosophical midwifery. So it's through this art we're learning here. We are gaining a method for reaching that which our soul truly seeks so much that even the distorted image of it is so believable to us. We walk away from that encounter, taking the blame for its injustice, coming up with a false belief about ourselves that causes our repeating problems and suffering in our life. It is the most insidious and strongest force in our life, based simply off the image of virtue. That's how much our soul seeks virtue. And virtue is known in Usia. So that's how much we really want it. So how do we get it? Holding your breath and counting your toes? Nope. This art of philosophical midwifery, which is good news for you as somebody who's been following along, learning the art of philosophical midwifery. So congratulations to you. Another way of expressing this is to say that in our present existence, we can reach out and touch Usia through the art of philosophical midwifery. For Plato, this reflective turning about is inherent in the very nature of being. Ooh. And when this feature is stressed, it is called Usia. So that's another aspect. So we talked about justice, beauty, all of the real beings that are knowable and rememberable. These are all aspects of being. It's being what we remember. That it's being that we are remembering. But how can that be if it's a oneness? How can it be a manyness? How can it have all these different things? How can it be justice and beauty? Because we are stressing specific features of it. The way I like to think of it is, in the physical world, we have the laws of physics, gravity, electromagnetic forces, friction forces, and so on and so on. Lots of forces. But in a particular moment, you might be focusing on or stressing a particular one of them. For instance, if you're driving in a fast car and you stick your head out the window, even though the electromagnetic forces and the nuclear forces and I don't know, whatever the physics that allows ice cream to stay as ice cream, stay as a solid, even though it's ice cream, they still exist. But by sticking your head out the window, you're really focusing on wind resistance. All the other stuff is still there, but you're really stressing a specific feature. That's the way I think of it. That's my metaphor that you're free to use if you like. Remember, we are creating hypotheses, ifs, and seeing if they pan out. So maybe that analogy would work for you to carry as an imagination. So, this reflective turning about is inherent in the very nature of being. When this turning about feature is stressed, it is called ousia. Thus, our existence, we can touch upon, through our existence, we can touch upon being and participate in being as ousia. We can do it in our existence through this art of midwifery. By answering injustice and remembering in whatever way we can the true virtues. By recognizing that what we experience in the development of our pathologos is universal. It's not unique to you. It ain't personal, and it's never, therefore, about blame or guilt or punishment or anything like that. It's universal. We're all humans. We all have this work to do. And Plato said, that's why you're born. There was something that you're carrying that prevented full experience of, participation in, identification with the most splendid and divine mysteries. Therefore, we had to come into this existence, bringing with us that problem and way of interpreting things. Add it to the human universal condition of parents cosplaying as Noahs that create a pathologos in every baby. Of course, there is an evolutionary tradition to this and stuff as well that we'll get into. So we take our soul's problem that it was experiencing in the realm of being, or beyond maybe, I don't know, it wasn't specific, but our soul had a problem that we take with us into this incarnation, and that uniqueness of our problem pairs with the universalness of the human experience, where we are a soul seeking the virtues, seeking being. They come together to create our problem. Our pathologos, which is solvable and can bring an end to our bring completion to our spiritual evolution. Tell your friends. Oh, and we've also went through a process. So, by the way, there are parts, I went through it. Okay, let me start again. I'm reading a different way today. I'm reading the whole section first, which can, instead of going through it more granularly, but from reading through it as a whole, we can recognize that there are different parts to this part. There are different sections to this part, or different parts to this section. Which means our job is to arrange those parts, pull out the terms, pull out the parts, see the parts, and arrange them within a structure. The structure of the dialectic. So can we find the parts of this section and arrange it in a dialectic? Make it our own. That's the art that we're learning. Thousands of talks, reviewed many more. We come into this world with a deep respect and, okay, let's not do, answer that. Profound attraction to the presence of the virtues. This idea of no one having taught us them, reflects the dialectic we went through in the Phaedo, where Socrates makes this point as well. Leads us through some questions that allows us to realize, hang on a second, yeah, where did we get the idea of truth from? I've never seen truth walking down the street. I've never seen fairness itself. Why do we care? Why do we recognize them instantly? Why do we have a kind of respect for these virtues? Because this very respect is the primary condition. Without us recognizing, having learnt it somewhere, and seeking it, if they weren't there, we wouldn't believe its shadow, its distortion. And he has never found two identical pathologos. That's interesting. Each of us comes up with our unique interpretation. And clearly it is not something we are taught. That's why we say pathologos is learned and not taught. You learn it. Yes, they set you up and they create the conditions for the kind of conclusion they want. But we learned it. Again, the uniqueness is not a mark of a cherished... Okay, so this isn't an idea that it's all relative. Hey, if everyone's pathologos or interpretation of their origin scene is different, that means there is no truth. Everything is relative to somebody's perception. Or their person's particular cherished viewpoint. Hey, it's all just a matter of personal opinion, so believe whatever you want. There is no true. Like that meme where the person's looking at a 6 written on the ground, and the person's looking at it from the other side. It looks like a 9 to them. See? What looks like 9 to you, it looks like 6 to me. And there is no objective truth. It's just a matter of perspective. Unless, of course, you step back and you realize, well, no, if somebody wrote a number, they wrote a number. There was an intention. The author intended a certain number. If it says McDonald's 6 miles ahead, he means 6 miles, even though it looks like a 9. That's the absurdity of the idea that everything is relative to perspective, opinions, or a cherished viewpoint, or really what's behind all of these personal projections that we try and save with the catchphrase, everything is relative. It's all based upon the pathologos. So anyone who says, hey, isn't it all relative to belief? You can say, no, it's all the same. What? Everyone's beliefs aren't the same. Everyone's perspective isn't the same. It's the opposite. Everyone's different, right? No, it's all the same. It's all the same in that they're all always wrong. Those unique interpretations are always wrong. So yeah, anyone who says it's all relative or it's all based on opinion or perspective, yeah, they're wrong. You don't even have to hear what their perspective is. They're wrong. Why? Well, first of all, we know from philosophy that truth is that which unifies, that which is universal, that which is eternal, that which is objectively true. That's why it's a oneness. That's why everyone can play. That's why no one needs to be punished. That's why no one gets excluded. And this, what we're reading here, is why there should never ever be any punishment or criminal system or prison or torture or war. Why? Because all of our problems we are supposed to have as a soul here to learn about something. Don't you dare punish a person for having a problem. Instead, create the conditions for them to reflect on it in this way, which is learning this art, which is freeing themselves from the cause of their problems and injustices, also bringing them further towards remembering the virtues, which is what we're really here for. Always. There's a new way of being. Just as we say all interpretations are false because they're all based on the pathologos, so we can say all human beings, no matter what you're doing, can function in that way we just described. You want to set up a school, create the conditions for fun, free, self-reflection on finding the logos of whatever particular study you're teaching, the logos of math, while also learning this art of midwifery to see the same logos reflected in our problems. Because we're human beings, we have pathologos, means we're going to have problems no matter what we're pursuing, even if it's learning math. And whatever logos you're learning in math, make sure you ask the question, well, hang on a second, what's the logos itself? For there to be an understandable, ordered system called mathematics that we can test in our physical world, what's the cause of that? So any insight you have in mathematics, you can utilize to gain an insight into the self and the soul, which is what we're here for. So that's a way of being that is universal, which means it's a new way of being that can unite humanity, include everyone, always function for the good, in both kinds of ways, removing what's false and mastery of what's good. Hooray! Whatever similarity can be found amongst the pathologos, there is always that unique difference. Okay, what is the cause of this difference? Well, we either gained it from our experience or it came with us. Those are the two options. If it's innate, it's common to us all and not unique. So we must have brought it with us. Sorry, if it's innate, right, that's if it's innate. Clearly, two conditions are required for the pathologos. So two most primary conditions. General factors common to mankind, which is the presence and perception of those signs of virtues. And individual factors or differences, which are necessary for the particular and unique expressions of the pathologos. Which is why similar sort of pathologos origin scenes, but different children coming, bringing in their own different problems and therefore interpretations. Why? Because all interpretations are false based on pathologos, and therefore they're all going to be a problem. So we can see in that reflection how the same force that causes our particular interpretations, false interpretations, would be our soul's problem. Our soul is carrying a unique way of misinterpreting things. And so the different family members can pick up different roles. So the image that they walk away with is different based on their different unique interpretations, based on their soul's problem, giving them different roles, different functioning within the same family pathologos. Gain different roles compatible within the family pathologos. So the common features, we either learnt them at birth, at soon after birth. So we either learned all about these virtues at birth, option 1, or soon after birth, or they are innate. It's interesting because we just said if they are innate. Oh, I see. Okay, all right. So the first use of innate is innate to all humans, but here is a different innate in that innate to our soul. In other words, if interpretation is something human, then we'd all have the same way of interpreting. The fact that it's not means that we have difference in the way we interpret it, and that difference we either learnt at birth. Sorry, we're not talking about differences, we're talking about the sameness, my mistake. We learnt about the universal part, the soul seeking virtues, truth and beauty. Are we born seeking truth and beauty at birth, soon after, or is that innate? Oh, okay, so it is the same. Okay, I made a mistake. The word innate here is the same innate. In other words, yes, we all have that innate seeking of ousia. We all seek to know the true nature of reality, and we all seek to know the self. Surely the transmission of the pathologos is not possible without the display of what is taken to be, but not really knowledge, greatness, beauty, and justice. So it is upon appearances that the virtues that... So everyone else who thinks that they know shit, who haven't got it through the logos, is copying an appearance. And those appearances are of what they think are those virtues that they should be learning about. Authority, and these people think, oh, that imitation... if I want to be an authority, if I want to pretend to be a knower, like the people I love and respect and look up to, it's this. It's the imitation of the appearances of these particular virtues that our particular authority figures were misdisplaying. The particular way in which they screwed it up. The display is only an image of the virtues and appearance of the real, even if it's distorted. We can be recalled by subjects as young of 2 years of age. So we do have an ability to remember scenes back when we were 2 years old, which is interesting. We went through more of the argumentations of why it had to have been carried with us, because there's no evidence of us going to virtue school at any age. And then some people say, no, we did learn about it. We did go to virtue school as little babies. We just forgot it. So then we would make the same claim. That's an absurd thing to claim because there's no evidence to support that. We can throw that away. Because you're saying you forgot all the evidence. That's handy. No evidence to support that false belief. Which is the blank slate theory. You come in as a blank slate, you learn about the virtues as a wee baby in virtue school, and then immediately forget that education. So that you're seeking virtue, so that when our parents come along and pretend to be virtuous, pretend to be great, knowledgeable, beautiful, or just, it sticks. We believe it, and causes all our problems. But it's all learned because we come into this world as a blank slate. We've just debunked that. Allowing us to see the midwifery and the pathologos and all the other evidence shows us that we do indeed bring with us a problem and a unique way of interpreting things. Pierre Grimes would always joke about when he was in the war fighting Hitler, thumbs up to fighting Hitler and being an amazing war hero, which is amazing. He's a war hero that stopped Hitler and helped play a key role in stopping Hitler. And he gave us this. My goodness. He would say, when he was hanging out in a bar with his war buddies, when someone would walk in, they'd play a game where they'd just look at the person just walking in. And I guess by the way that he walked or the way he held himself, they would guess Marine, Navy, Paratrooper. That's Marine, isn't it? Yeah, Air Force. They would pick what sort of person he was. And he said that they were right almost all the time. He also talked about his, I think, sister, who was a midwife of babies, and said, yeah, you can see even less than 1 day old, you can see their different personalities. Where did they get it from? The doctor delivered the baby and turned around, and then some teacher ran in and taught it, hey, seek these virtues. Oh, and have this unique way of interpreting things. So we've dismissed that blank slate theory, and which leads us to the conclusion our soul must be immortal. So it must have been somewhere at least before we came into here. And if this false interpretation causes our problems, then maybe our soul had a problem. So, realizing all of this allows us to participate more directly and sincerely, because we know it's the truth of everyone. It's not personal. We don't have to be guilty about our particular problem. Of course you have your particular problem. based on your soul's problems with the spiritual realm. You're here to have that problem. That's your job, to have that problem and see that problem and wonder about the problem and solve the problem. Because that solving of that problem is a lesson you're going to need tomorrow. Again, showing that any sort of war, punishment, torture, crime, it's all under the keyword punishment. We smuggle in the idea of violence and oppression under punishment. And the word deserve. They deserve to be punished. Fuck you. All of you who think that, you're wrong. And I'm saying fuck you because wake up. It's cruel. And it's doing the exact opposite of what we need. But I studied for many years as a teacher. I learned that rewards and punishment is how we help kids learn. You're wrong. Change your mind. Now, if you aren't able to change your mind and you consider and you continue to function in an unjust way, there's your problem. Solve it. Oh, and it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to be doing your best and being most sincere and being most direct in what you do. It's fun, but it's also very important. The noblest game brings those two ideas together. Homo ludens, man the player. All the succeeding variations and adjustments of the pathologos shaft and craft its features. So there might be a development through our incarnations and definitely through our life experiences that craft and shape the pathologos. So that's our personal heritage. We have a heritage, we have a lineage we are taking with us of our learning through past incarnations. We are refining the pathologos, becoming more and more of a zombie. Unless
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
we take up this quest. Since the pathologos can be resolved, big point.
Wow.
It is not innate, but came into existence with us. You bring your pathologos in from these forces merging. For rather than being an inherent feature of man's development, it is a transient feature. Transient feature of man's development. It can be resolved. One more time. Yell it from the mountaintops. You can solve problems. You're here to solve problems. So why do we have prisons? Prisons are doing the wrong thing. Turn the prisons into luxury resorts where we can have the space, time, and ease to reflect in this way to actually resolve the problems that put you there in the first place. Which would also include reflecting on the causes of those problems in society so that we can address those so those problems don't keep happening. Again, only can happen if we are playing in a mature, fun way, involving self-reflection or another word for self-reflection that we got today in the text. Usia. There's your model. Go out and do it. Please. And quickly. Because we are racing against the clock for the salvation of our species. Salvation in that stopping ourselves from becoming extinct. Because the successive refinement and honing of the pathologos of people who happen to be in charge of our current unjust non-logos pathologos society can play out the tragedy of their problem with nuclear weapons to the extinction of humanity itself. So, yeah. Employ that change. Become this new way of being. Turn those prisons into reflection retreats. Because it can be resolved. In resolving the pathologos, we gain a more profound understanding of those virtues. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
And enter into relationships. Okay, this is another big one. It also allows us a different kind of relationship with our friends and loved ones. The presence of our relationship lays upon the foundation of we gain a more profound understanding of these virtues and enter into relationships where the presence of their virtue, their presence, lays the foundation for a more meaningful existence. If our relationships are based on these virtues that are knowable and rememberable, knowledge, greatness, beauty, justice, and really also mastering the art of midwifery, because it's the art of midwifery that allows us to touch those things and know them and actually get them. Therefore, what's he really saying our relationships are based on? The virtues? Well, what? How do you get them? Two things. Removing the false image you're carrying that's distorting your life of the virtues. And actually remember, touch the virtues for themselves. How do you remove what's false? Midwifery. The art of midwifery. How do you then touch what's true? Apparently here, he said, we can reach out in our present existence. We can reach out and touch Usia through the art of philosophical midwifery. So if it's the art of philosophical midwifery that removes what's false and helps us to touch what's true, and he is saying here that we gain an ability to enter into relationships based on their relationships whose foundation is based on those virtues, leading to our more meaningful existence. What's he really saying our new relationships would be based on if we come to this realization? The art of midwifery. Can you imagine a relationship like that? Curiously, our reasoning leads us to a strange conclusion. We won't get out of our problems until we discover. We won't get out of our problems. This is a strange conclusion we come to. Until we discover what we took to be real was merely an appearance. And that the appearance of virtue. Okay, let's. Number one. We won't get out of our problems until we realize what we took to be real was merely appearance, and the appearances of virtue we have imitated are in every way unworthy of us. It's a diminished level of being. It's a diminished idea of yourself. It's a diminished kind of relationship. It's a diminished life. As philosophical midwives, we come to recognize and understand this level of existence. As midwives come to recognize and understand this level of existence, an existence that includes multiple lifetimes, reincarnation, a soul having a problem, there being a universal feature of humanity to seek Usia and the virtues that are parts of Usia, aspects of Usia, as well as bringing into that human condition the particular kind of interpretation based on our soul's problem That's a new kind of existence you now have an image of by reading this book and progressing through the art of a midwife. Congratulations for you. As a result of having this perspective, this new understanding, recognition of this level of existence, you're seeing existence and yourself from a greater whole. What will happen is you yourself will participate in philosophical midwifery even better than you have been before. More directly and more sincerely. Of course, why hide? Why waste time? Why be indirect and waste time if you have realized, oh, my soul had a problem that I'm here to solve. I better make use of every second I have to solve that problem so I can return and use that lesson tomorrow. Complete my spiritual evolution on this planet and enjoy all of the many, many benefits that come. And why not be sincere? Why lie about it if it's not personal? If you can never be blamed? If you should have the problems you have? Always. And blame, guilt, shame, punishment are all pathologos-like lies that are false, wrong, bad, not worth listening to, and are bullshit. Marks of ignorance and tyranny and oppression. The reflection of the ignorance and pathologos of those people who think that way. So now that's out of the picture. We don't listen to or care about the ignorance of others. That's their job to solve. And if it's part of the human condition and isn't personal, then why not be? Why hide? Why be insincere or hide? And why do anything else instead of being direct? Makes sense, doesn't it? Our existence here has given us our task, which is to, okay, we've got a task. Our existence has given us our task. So what's that? That's a really light, logos light way of saying we have a purpose and destiny and there is a meaning to life. You can know it, you can understand it. It's universal, but also there's a particularity that makes it for you, your puzzle. But there is an objective, true destiny we all have, which is a way that we can all come together once again. Because if we're all playing the same game, why not play together? Why pretend we're at odds? Why pretend we're different selves if it turns out to be the one self? If this is the nature of all human problems and our task or our purpose, why not do it and help each other? That's our job, to do that now. So, watching this, make it happen. We have given a task in our existence, which is to overcome the effects of those communications that have turned us away from pursuing what is right. So we start seeking what's right, what's true, what's just, usia, and self, through logos. But our job is to find what turns us away from the logos, turns us away from usia, and turns us away from the self. Notice I keep repeating these same three things. Logos, usia, and self. These are also the first three hypotheses of Parmenides. We are at the fourth level, group thinking. Our society, our species, and also our pathologos. Notice it's all group-based. Loyalty to the group, having a role within a group, acceptance within a group. A family curse, a lineage of the group. Groups fighting groups, Jews and fighting whoever they're fighting, Palestinians today. Protestants fighting Catholics. Left fighting right. Capitalists fighting human beings. All groups. That's the fourth hypothesis. Our job is to move into the third. That picks up logos. What does logos allow us to do? This. Remove our false images of virtue and also touch virtue. So logos opens us up to usia, which is the second hypothesis. And of course, if we reflect even on the second hypothesis with the logos that we have unlocked, allows us to go to even the cause of usia, the self. Hang on a second. Don't we have two things to do? If you wanted to go from logos to being, logos to ousia, you have to remove the false image of ousia as well as touch the thing. So too, if that the next step after the second is the first, the one self, you better remove your false image of yourself. That's your path of logos, and also be open to reaching out and touching the true nature of yourself. So first, second, and third hypotheses of Parmenides. There are 9 hypotheses. It's just a model for describing the stages of development of anything, of anyone, and of any species. It's the logos applied to development. So our job is to overcome the effects of the communications that have turned us away from that pursuit. In return, we recover what we have lost, and that is a recollection of what we've forgotten about justice, knowledge, sound-mindedness, recalling what we have forgotten. The effect of resolving the distorted communications is at the same time a truer recollection of the virtues. Now he's saying that you're kind of doing both of those things. In removing, you're also kind of touching the real thing. So philosophical midwifery seems to be doing two things at once.
It's a win-win.
Which is interesting. Interestingly, it is these two things that Plato cites as the value of gaining an earthly existence. We've got Plato. Why do we gain an earthly existence? It is only here. Notice, stakes have gone up. Where else are you going to do this? Where else are you going to do midwifery, learn the logos? It's only here the soul can gain a training in these very things. Prior to this existence, it is said that the soul missed an opportunity to see the most splendid and blessed of mysteries. And if it is to complete its spiritual evolution, notice, complete its spiritual evolution, if our soul is to complete its spiritual evolution, it needs to return to where it can gain the necessary training. That's here. That's this life that you're in now. That brings you to this podcast and this reading and this realization. Thus, for the Platonists, the problems we face today are our lessons for tomorrow. We are doing a training for tomorrow where our soul had the opportunity to participate in or see the most blessed and most splendid and blessed mysteries. It's then that we want to. It's for that lesson. That's where we apply our learning. The art of midwifery, here we go, turns us around to focus on our existence. Higher level of ousia than most people. For to understand the forces and ideas that operate in our problems, we have to understand the forces and ideas that operate in our problem. That's what we're doing. To do that, we have to turn our attention around and reflect on those things that escaped our notice. So we are ousiaing on ourselves to find what we missed. This turning about of our very being is what is called in Greek ousia. Ooh, there's our ousia, second hypothesis. In that motion, there is a turning about of the mind towards a reality beyond mere existence, beyond mere physical existence. And those of you who are also doing philosophy with us on the channel, we could say that even if we do turn our mind about and experience itself in ousia, from there is a possibility to turn around even further and find a reality beyond even pure existence of ousia, the one self that is the cause of ousia. Another way of expressing this is to say that in our present existence right now, you,
Wow.
You can reach out and touch Usia.
Wow.
Through the art of philosophical midwifery.
Wow.
That's neat.
Wow.
For Plato,
Wow.
this reflective turning about is inherent in the very nature of being. So this Usia that we are learning about, we're doing in the dialectic, we're doing in midwifery, we're doing in this kind of reflection on ourselves, reflection on what escaped our notice, reflection on our problems, reflection on our image and beliefs, really reflection on higher and higher levels of self. What's that reflection? Usia, reflecting on self. On higher and higher levels of self. That always comes along with logos. We're not interpreting, we're removing our pathologos, which causes our misinterpretations, learning the logos, adding that to Usia, so that we can ultimately reach our destiny of the self. 3, 2, 1. This reflective turning about is inherent in the very nature of being. When this feature of being is stressed, it is called Usia. Thus, through our existence, big conclusion, big finale. Through our existence, we can touch upon being and participate in being as Usia. If you do this, if we go through this, put into action, put into demonstration, all that we are understanding and reading and learning, put into demonstration all we're defining, then in your existence, you can touch being and participate in being. You can dwell in the isles of the blessed. You can remember what your soul is here to remember. And maybe your soul couldn't participate in that before having come into this world. So if our soul had a problem, it said we could not participate in the most splendid and divine mystery, maybe that splendid and divine mystery is mind knowing itself as ultimate reality. Maybe that's what we couldn't participate in, but having incarnated into the only place where we can do the work, only place where we can solve our problem our soul had, then if we do that, in our existence we can touch what we weren't able to touch, being, and participate in what we weren't able to participate in, being. And we are participating in a unique way where we are it. We are participating as Usia. We are no different from Usia. So if that's how you participate in being, by being Usia yourself, that better be your idea of the self. Or rather, your idea of the self includes that or is beyond that. Because if you have a diminished view of yourself and you can't be Usia as Usia, how can you be the one? How can you be same as being? How can you be that oneness? Therefore, we have to master this art, do it, remove what's false about self and reality so we can participate in self as reality, as Usia. Then, of course, we have questions about what's the cause of Usia. That's the game. Really good section. Just giving us, like usually he's asking us questions. He's giving us dialectics to create. Please, if you can, make a dialectic out of this section. I'm sure it's there. We noticed parts. We also noticed the part where he talked about the different theories. What if the blank slate theory is true? What if the innate, everything is innate theory is true? What if there is no truth, it's all opinion or relative to perspective? We took those 3 common false beliefs and we showed how that they were wrong, absurd. They led to a contradiction or an absurdity. So that could be the division stage, because the division stage of the dialectic often has, what if what we're saying is true, but what if it's not? In other words, it still seems he's giving us an exercise to do the dialectic ourselves. I won't do it on stream because that's for you. I can help you and point to it, encourage you to share it, of course. But also, while giving us the puzzle, he did give us a whole bunch of truths that are amazing. You can reach, there is a destiny. It can be completed in this lifetime, in your existence. And you can touch being as Usia. Therefore, Pathologos isn't inherent to the spiritual evolution because it's temporary. It can be resolved in the human experience and only here. Necessary for whatever your soul was struggling with before it came here, that you can return back to in this life, in this existence, by returning to pure being, the virtues, as Usia, on your journey to return back to the self. And maybe if that's the journey through which you return to the self, you can make use of that logos and dialectic, make use of that experience of the true model of the virtues of Usia, make use of that integration into your natural state of being of the pure oneself, to function with all three of those hypotheses as a dialectician or someone with the art of philosophical midwifery to benefit others. Also benefiting yourself. The insights you gain as a midwife, you can apply to yourself. And we just read helps you participate better in midwifery yourself. So he's just coming out and telling us that. Or Plato is anyway. And Pierre is telling us some things as well. That's huge. Make some memes, tell your friends. If you have any power or creating anything in any sense, use it in whatever you're doing, always. And have fun. And of course, afterwards, remember, have the experience and we have the reflection. Do the thing, do the Usia. So as you do that, please let us know how it goes. Add some comments in the comment section of the YouTube. Or join the Discord if you want to have deeper conversations. But let us know how you go. Celebrate your success, even your challenges. In putting this vision, this new vision of the ideal of man that allows us to solve problems, reach our destiny in a way that prevents any harm or violence against people and unites us as a species. The way of the Logos. Putting this new way of being, following the way of the Logos, into effect in your world. Doing it, let us know how you go. And I hope to see you next time in the next one. The next one we are going to be on the Logos. Wow. Chapter part 10, the Logos. That sounds like it's going to be key. No spoilers. Thank you once again for joining me. I hope to see you next time. And hey, follow that Logos with wonder. Bye.